Test 1, 2. Okay. Alright. Alright, guys. Welcome to another podcast, I guess. Today we're going to talk about sports card collecting for a few minutes. And we're going to play some little video game for a few minutes. So this morning I was working on my teams list, and I'm just now getting back into the hobby. So I think it's a good time to start a little podcast here to show kind of if you were just getting into the hobby for the first time or getting back into it. And maybe when you were a kid you didn't do this, but as an adult, you kind of need to make a list of the cards that you're actually really interested in, so that you save a bunch of time and money while you're collecting cards. So I'll show you look at these two little mages running around, little gnomes. He's in full pirate gear. So anyways, that's really funny. So, as you build your list, this could be what it looks like after you're done. This would be your starting point. I would say this is the starting point for any card collector. You got to know what you're really interested in the most, what you would trade out of, and what you would just sell or trade or give away for basically. So you start to see this in your mind. But there's about 30 teams for each sport, and so if you add up, if you're into all three sports, by that I mean NFL, so football, baseball, and basketball, that's a lot of teams, and you gotta narrow it down, or you might waste time or even money. Thank you, little gnomes. They defeated my enemy that was so yeah, that's just it. Just a list. I call it the buy, trade, sell list. And obviously, you could have a different one for each. So like I could have only made it for one sport at a time, you know, kind of put more of a space in between here, right? Like if you're only interested in football, your list would be a lot easier. And actually, I like that. I think I would put at least a space in between here. Give your eyes a rest, right? But yeah. So as you can see, I took 30 teams, and now I have 15 teams at least, or at least a dozen teams in the seller category. Meaning seller, meaning if I have a card from this team, I would probably sell it unless it's incredibly rare for some other reason. So this is just a starter list because you could still have teams that have uh, stars or rookies or refractors, holographics, unique colors that you collect. Like if your favorite color is orange, and you just, even if it's a card from the Milwaukee Brewers and you don't collect that team, you don't, or maybe they have a star or a rookie, or like I say, a refractor, a holographic, or a specific color. Um, like in sports cards, they do colored borders. So like you might have an orange colored border, a green, a red, a black, a blue, a white. So they have all different colors, and it doesn't have to be the same team color. So you could have like a Cincinnati Reds. Obviously, their team colors are red and white, but it could be a blue refractor. And if you collect all blue refractors, then you know you might still collect a card from that team because it's a blue refractor. So as you build your list of what you're interested in as far as specialties go, I call those specialty cards. You know, you might collect all rookies, even if it's somebody from the Baltimore Oriole, the Cincinnati Red, Detroit Tigers, but those really aren't your teams. Like my teams are like the Diamondbacks, the Braves, the Red Sox, the White Sox, the Dodgers. Like and you can understand why those would be the better teams. Like those are more popular teams for every person. Whereas a Cincinnati Reds fan might be a fan because they're from, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio area, and so they might say, I really think, or I really like that team because I grew up around a bunch of people always talking about those teams, right? So I'm from like the Dallas, Texas area when it comes to picking teams. Like we're about 5 to 10 hours away from Dallas, Texas, but it's definitely at the top of my NFL list because everybody around me is always talking about the Cowboys, and you know when they and sports games are regional when it comes to putting them on TV or radio. Um, so like in Ohio, they would watch a lot more Cincinnati games on the TV on the local stations, whereas in my area, we would watch more of the Dallas Cowboys. Uh, because on Sundays when everybody's playing, they got to pick one, and they got to fill that time slot with the most important team for your area. And so we watch a lot of the Cowboys and things like this. Also, with this list, you can tell that I'm more heavy into football cards, and then next up I'm more into baseball cards, and then next up I'm more into basketball cards, judging just by the count of how many teams that I think that I collect. Now, how did I pick these teams? Um, we'll get to that in just a minute. My preferences for how I pick a team, but the the another point to this, seeing that I have more NFL teams and basketball teams, really my favorite sport is baseball. And maybe that's why I'm able to narrow down my list to just a few of my favorite teams. And then you notice I have a pretty decent trade list on all three. Looks like about um, I think it's almost 10 almost 10 teams for each sport. So I think that's pretty good for just the trade list because, like I said, those are cards that trading takes a lot of time. You want more on your sell list than you do on your trade list, you know. Um, but that being said, if I had a whole binder full of Orlando Magic cards, right, I wouldn't be unhappy. I like the color black and blue. I like Florida um, as a state, or I just like those cards because I collected that team when I was a kid. But nowadays, I'm more into like the Memphis Grizzlies and the Chicago Bulls are obviously a classic. When I was a kid, I was really into the Charlotte Hornets, and I still am. And I'm still really into Orlando Magic. So that one might move up to my buyer list. And by buyer, I mean like if somebody had 10 cards laying on the table and I had to buy one, like I really don't want to buy any cards, but since the other two categories are called traders and sellers, because I would trade them or I would sell them outright, then the buyer that just completes the the third term for the category the proper term would be a buyer because he's buy, trade, and sell. So I wouldn't really buy a card outright unless it was the right card. It would have to be the right team, the right player, and the right specialty, such as purple refractor. I really like the blue refractors. I like the white and black refractors are really rare. So obviously, if I had a binder full of those, I would lock it away and not tell anybody. I would hide that. So that means it's a very special type of card. So yeah, with the price of cards, at $5, $10 a piece or more, up to $100 or even up to $500. If you had the right card, I still wouldn't buy it probably. But this is for like when you're opening packs of cards and you're looking at all the cards that you got, and obviously you want to sell more than you keep. And you notice my sell list is way longer than my buy list and trade list because trading takes a lot of time. You don't want to have a bunch of binders full of trading cards that takes a lot of time. Those cards can get lost or stolen, God forbid, but they could. So those need to be teams that almost made it to your buy list, right? And every other team needs to be on the sell list. If they didn't almost make it to your buy list, then they're not something that you would keep in your collection because it's going to take up space and take up mental, power that you have to use your brain to trade things and to collect things that you would actually want to spend time collecting. So like me, I would definitely put more time into the Chicago Bulls collection and the Los Angeles Lakers collection, even more time than I would put into the Hornets, the Grizzlies, and the Spurs. So this list could still be refined. I could give it, I could still give these two, even, I could paint these a different color. These are super green, right? And then like over here, like I say, Orlando Magic and maybe Boston Celtics and Miami Heat. Now, I've always liked the Raptors and the Jazz, but you don't want to mark everything a super collector, but you could paint these a darker color of the same. So you see, these are more, even in the list of trades, they're still more important. But that being said, I wouldn't put the Pistons, the Bucks, the Raptors, and the Jazz into the seller pile because I wouldn't mind having a whole binder full of Raptors and Jazz and the Bucks and the Timberwolves. I could probably move those over to the seller pile, honestly, and even the Pistons. But like Raptors and Jazz, I wouldn't mind having a whole binder full, but I would put more time into my Magic, Heat, and Celtics. Those probably go more on the Jazz and the Raptors. Like probably not the most important, but I do like the color green and white, and they have some classic value to the game of basketball overall. Pretty. They got Larry Bird and all that stuff going on for them. So uh, this is a rough draft list, and this list will always be changing. Um, so it's not like a finalized list for me, and that's the thing I wanted to point out too. And then it can always change. If you start to really get into the Phoenix Suns, they could go into your trade pile, and then maybe suddenly they start winning all the time, and you think that they're really cool. Or maybe you move to Phoenix and you become a fan. Put them in your buy list. Like it's that easy. Nobody's saying that you have to stick with it even for one day. Like every day, this list could change. Um, but this is a way to clear up your mind space so that you focus on the right cards. Obviously, you start with the teams, I would say, and then because the players are going to change for each team, and but like you can pick the teams. This is what I was going to say earlier. You can pick the teams, um, kind of based off of basically city, state, um, and then it sounds immature. Mascot, and then colors, right? So like obviously Los Angeles Dodgers, right? I like them because they're popular nationwide. I like them because Los Angeles is a big time city. I like them because they have classic history in the field in the game of baseball. I like them because they're winners. I like them because the colors are bold, that blue and white with the Dodgers on the front. That's a classic. Like if I wear that, I can be in St. Louis, Missouri, or Austin, Texas, or Nashville, Tennessee, and I could still wear a Los Angeles Dodgers shirt, and everybody's gonna know instantly that I'm repping a baseball team. Whereas, I could have a Toronto Blue Jays, and they'd be like, where did, what is, they could, you don't want to, so this list is so that you can buy the right gear to outfit yourself. Um, so, like, you know what I mean? So that you can collect the right cards. Because when you're card collecting, you spend a lot of time looking at the same cards over and over. They're going to have to be the right colors, man. They're going to have to be the right mascot, the right city. You want to pick the winners, and you want to pick the ones that everybody knows. And that makes it easier for you. It does increase competition because everybody's looking for Los Angeles Dodgers cards, right? That being said, look over here. I have the Yankees in the trade pile. I don't really have to collect every Yankee, and those are two opposite teams. Like you got the L.A. Dodgers and the New York Yankees. I could wear a Yankee shirt, and everybody's gonna know that it's a baseball team. But I live in the South. I live in Texas area, so Southern people are kind of aversive to the Yankees because they got that whole North versus South thing and everything. So it made it only to my trade pile. Whereas somebody who's from up north or out east, maybe somebody who's closer to the New York Yankees, they would probably not wear an Atlanta Braves. I have the Atlanta Braves here. They might wear the Dodgers because it's such a popular team, and like I might wear the Yankees, but not day to day out in public where I live right now. That would be something that I would only wear if I went to visit um, somebody that I know that lives closer up north to, maybe if I'm out in Um, you know, if you go visit somebody in Pittsburgh, you could find a lot more Yankees fans, and so you might wear a Yankees shirt or hat. So, like I say, this list can save you a lot of money when it comes to buying team gear as well, because you can only wear so many teams, and you can only buy so many clothes for your collection and stuff. But you know, you got to narrow it down, and with each team, you could create other smaller lists here. Like I said, why do you like the Bulls and the Lakers? Because they're the best, right? They're winners. They're the classics. They're everybody's favorite. Why do I like the Memphis and the San Antonio? Because I live right in the middle of Memphis and San Antonio. I live in the Texas area, halfway to Memphis, halfway to Texas, Dallas. So we got those two made it to my personal list, right? Um, so like those are almost two different. You can make two different lists, but I think at that point I would just highlight these in a different color. Like I say, these might get a lighter color green, and then these might get a darker color green, so that you can notice, like, okay, these are more important. These are important for me regionally. And so, like, I might buy a Grizzlies t-shirt and hat because I'm always out and about, and I want people to know that I'm a fan, and I'm a local to this region. Whereas if I was wearing if I was wearing Miami Heat in the middle of Arkansas or Louisiana, people would ask me weird questions like, "Oh, do you like that team?" Or, "Oh, are you from Miami?" Or, "Oh, do you live in Florida?" Or, "Why are you up here?" Whereas if I wear Memphis Grizzlies, they're gonna know, like, dude loves Memphis Grizzlies because we're 3 hours away from Memphis, right? I mean, it makes sense. It's regional. Okay, so these are just little tips and tricks to get you started with your own list. I'm not going to keep going on and on about it because I've said everything I can say about it. Um, but like I say, you can take it as far as you want to go, or as basic as you want to go. And like when I was a kid, I just had like one team. Like, I like the Chicago Bulls, right? When somebody would ask me, I thought you could only have one team, so I was like, I like the Atlanta Braves, I like the Chicago Bulls, and I like the Dallas Cowboys. But as you go through life, it's okay to have multiple teams that you like. That's the last tip that I can really say right now is like, and then on my trade list, those have to be teams that I like as well, because I might get stuck holding a binder full of cards from those teams for a long time. Or when you're setting up trades with your friends on a Thursday night at the comic book store, and you have your trade binder, you're going to be talking a lot about those cards. So you're going to be talking about the teams and the players on those cards as you arrange trades. And so these are teams that almost like that I've liked before as I was growing up, but only liked them for like a month or two, and then my interest faded. Right? If it's something that you start, like, I used to be just a St. Louis Cardinals fan, and like that was my first team, and then I went to the Atlanta Braves, right? And so like St. Louis Cardinals, I liked them for you know probably 5 or 10 years as a kid. I could even move those over to my buy list. I'll be honest with you. I would collect St. Louis Cardinals cards, um, more long term than just to trade on next Thursday night. Like I could see myself going heavy into St. Louis Cardinals, you know. So, but for right now, I have so many teams over here that I really like right now. Like, I like the Diamondbacks. I like the Braves. Um, the Red Sox for me are a classic. And when I was in high school, me and my friends, we were really about the Red Sox, and they were winning. and they had big guys that would hit home runs, and they won like at least 2 or 3 World Series. I don't even know, probably 4 or 5. I don't even know, but it was, I need to. I should have kept better track of it. And this is why I made this little video, is to, hey, if you're interested in something, it's worth the time spent to, it took me maybe an hour to build this list. I had to type all the teams in. I had to think about their colors and their mascots and the cities that they're from, and I had to edit my list multiple times, and then I had to put them into alphabetical order, and then I had to color the list these different colors here, and add this header to say, is this NFL or NBA or whatever. But it took me maybe an hour or less. But now it's a list that I can work with, and it cleared my mind of how many teams here. This is a list of, that's at least 15 teams right there from the NBA that I don't even have to think of. And like when I'm opening a pack of cards, you're going to get a card from the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Chicago Bulls. Well, I'm going to keep the Chicago Bulls card. The Milwaukee Bucks card, I'm going to put in my trade binder. It's cool. I could talk about Milwaukee every day, all day long, and still not get tired of the hobby. Right? You want these teams to be teams that keep you interested enough to where you'll keep trading and going to the bookstore, to comic book store, to keep you interested. Whereas if I was talking about the New Orleans Pelicans and the the Denver Nuggets, like those aren't strong mascot characters. They don't have real interesting. They're just not really interesting teams, and so they're gonna have weaker players. No offense to anybody, they still play well, and they're still professional athletes. They still do better than I can. So I'm not saying they're weak, but I'm saying they get the actually they might not, they might be a really good player. But I'm saying you have more superstars going to the Los Angeles Lakers and the Chicago Bulls, right? Let's be honest, right? And so those are the teams you're going to want to focus on. And then within this list, see, and you want to narrow this down. You might look at this for a weekend or a couple of weeks as you get into the hobby and start to narrow it down. And then you need to go through and make a list. Who are the superstars from each of these teams? So you pick your teams, and then you get to pick your superstars. So for me, I know I like that guy Kobe White from the Chicago Bulls. I like his jersey number. I like his hairstyle. I like the way he plays. He plays like incredible. That guy is incredible. He's one of my top picks for any card collecting. I would buy a Kobe White before I would buy a so like I'm really into baseball more than I am basketball. So like you could say, well, would you pick a Randy Johnson from the Arizona Diamondbacks in the 90s, or Chipper Jones Atlanta Braves from the 90s, 2000s, or let's see, let's pick somebody from the current. I don't know. I'm just now getting back into the hobby of watching sports, so I don't really know many of the players. But I do know that as far as card collecting goes, Kobe White from the Chicago Bulls, I'm heavy on. I like that card so much I would almost buy some singles. But I know that I could get the cards in packs, so I prefer to open packs and build my collection that way. But at the same time, when I have a lot of friends that are in the hobby, I could trade for Kobe White. So like with my Chicago Bulls list, obviously it would look something like this. It would be like Chicago Bulls, you got Kobe White. Then obviously you're going to have your classic players from that. You got Michael Jordan. You got Scottie Pippen. Right? So like, and then of course, like I say, these are classics. And then these are modern. But that being said, they still put classic players on modern cards. I could open up a pack from 2025, and they still putting Michael Jordan on cards. From what am I wrong about that? I'm pretty sure I was watching some YouTube videos of some guys opening some packs, and they was opening you know, like Tom Brady cards from the Patriots. And I'm like, isn't this video from 2025? Tom Brady doesn't even play for the Patriots anymore, right? And like, but they were still putting Tom Brady cards. You know what I mean? So like, you can get retired players on your modern cards. So that's why you gotta know your team and the historically awesome players from that team. And then you got to know your modern players that are actively playing on that team and their statistics, and the way that the hobby works is like when they're hot, the price of the cards is going to go up. When they're not so hot, price of the card goes down. And you need to know this when you're out trading with your friends. You need to know your players for the teams. So only put players on your trade list that are going to be really, only put trade list teams that are going to be really interesting to you to at least know all of the classic players and all of the modern players, right? So that you can know if your values are going up or down. Um, you know, you got to know if you're going up and down. Um, like you might be keeping up with the sports news in the newspaper and know that Kobe White has hit three championships in the past 5 years or something. He's hot. He ain't going anywhere. The Chicago Bulls are going to give him another $1 million next year to play. So you can bet that it's going to be a good card to trade for. Whereas if Kobe White has missed a bunch of games and he injured his knee and um, maybe he's not going to play next year, well, in 12 months that card is going to be worth less than what you trade for it today. So like you gotta be interested enough in the team to be interested enough in the players to be interested enough to know if they're injured or hitting a bunch of 3-pointers lately or something like this. Maybe somebody's playing for the Diamondbacks and they're hitting a bunch of home runs, but right now, they haven't been hot lately, but now they're getting hot. And if you know that at the front of, because you're keeping up with the news, then you could score big at the comic book store with people who aren't keeping up with the news. When you're trading, they could be like, yeah, I've got these cards. And you're like, whoa, he's got these cards of this dude that's hitting these home runs. And be like, hey, you like that player? Nah, not really. You want to trade? Yeah, I'll trade for that card. Because in your mind, like in a year or two, that dude's just now hitting his groove and he's going to be hot, right? He's going to be hitting home runs for the next 3 or 4 years. And so I want my collection to increase in value, not decrease in value, but so like I'm going to trade for his cards. And so you go around for the next few months at the comic book store or few weeks and you just hit everybody up for all those cards and you come away from that few months or few weeks worth of trading with maybe 100 cards from that guy, and you traded out of all these cards here. You might they might have been like, okay, I want your card from I like the Philadelphia Phillies and then another card from the Miami Marlins, and like these are cards that you basically would have gave away anyway. Cards that even if the players were hot, you still wouldn't care because it's not your team. Now, that being said, if it's a hot player, you want to keep it even if it's not your team. So you got to know a little bit about those teams and players as well. But the ones that you're really heavy into, see, and this is where you can draw the line at trade night. You can just flip through somebody's binder, and if you're seeing a bunch of Minnesota Twins and Washington Nationals, and you can be like, oh yeah, if you want some of my cards, I don't really want any of your cards, so we might not be able to come to a trade. Whereas if you have And you're not trading any of your Braves, Diamondbacks, Red Sox, White Sox. Those are all at the house. You don't take those with you to trade night. So your trade binder is only going to be these yellow rows here. And as you can see, that's a lot. You're leaving your best cards at the house so they don't get stolen or lost at trade night, right? So that would be these cards here in the green. Those are binders that you're not even taking with you to the comic book store so that you don't lose them. Because those are where most of your value is, and sentimental value as well. Dollar value and sentimental value and the interest in the hobby. That's why you leave those cards at home and you don't let people steal your cards. You know what I mean? Then you have trade binders, of course. I mean, I would be heartbroken if somebody stole my, Baltimore Ravens, Chicago Bears. I mean, these are still hot teams that I really liked at some point in my trading, or that everybody across the country likes. So they're really good cards. I might not even take some of those cards, right? Like these are still traders, but they might be cards that I only trade at home with my best friends who I know aren't going to steal from me, right? So like I would not even take my Ravens, Bears, Dolphins, and Giants and Seahawks, Patriots. So like I might only have the Colts and the Falcons and the Texans, and that might be all that really hits my public trade binder. Let's call it public trade. And then you have private trade, would be like at my house with 3 or 4 friends. I know they're not going to mess me up, like steal my cards and stuff. If I misplace my cards, they're going to say, hey, are these your cards, and give them back to me. They're not going to be like, oh, a free pile of cards, because it's at my house, right? They're not going to steal from me. So, that's my private trade at the house, whereas all of these teams over here, Jacksonville Jaguars, Cleveland Browns especially, Cincinnati Bengals, Denver Nuggets. Like, I really like the city of Denver. Don't get me wrong. But those teams, the Nuggets, really? That's not even a cool mascot, dude. I can't get behind a team that, like, it's just not very interesting to me. I love the city of Dallas as far as, I love the Dallas Cowboys. I've never been to Dallas, but, in my area, people are always talking about the Dallas Mavericks. They're still not on my trade list because I really don't. Honestly, I don't like the mascot. I don't like the team colors. It's a cool mascot because Maverick means like cowboy, so I can get behind it a little bit. That one I might be able to move to my trade list. I mean, I could get into talking about Dirk Nowitzki and, I mean, there's interest a little bit there because I'm regional. But honestly, I would rather just talk more about um, the Utah Jazz, and I've never been to Utah before in my life. But I like the colors. I like the purple. I like the little saxophone. And most people would say that is a lame mascot, right? The Jazz, it's a saxophone. Like, come on, that's nothing. But to me, I always thought it was cool. I don't know why. I just thought it was cool. I mean, I still don't know why. I mean, honestly, common sense would tell you that's not a cool mascot. But to me, I like it. And I like those places out in the Midwest, or what do they call it, the desert, the western states in the country where it's all desert and stuff. So yeah, the Utah Jazz. I mean, it's a pretty cool team. I could keep up with their players and not get tired of seeing their mascot and their team colors associated with their players. And if I only have a list of 3 or 4 players from that team, then that I'm interested in, then it doesn't add too much to my plate of what I have to think about when I'm looking through other people's trade binders. Okay, Utah Jazz, I don't even know one of their players right now. I don't know if they ever had any good players like Michael Jordan or anything like that, but you know, so your next list would be to take all of your buy and trade list and make who would you buy and trade for? And then your sellers list, you're going to have players that hit the absolute sellers list. So for each team, you're going to have to do this whole list again. Buyers, traders, and sellers for every single team on this whole list. So that's going to take a lot more time. It's going to be this same type of spreadsheet, but for every single team. And I'm going to have to go through historical data. Who was the best players for the 76ers? Well, Allen Iverson. And to be honest with you, I'm heavy on Allen Iverson. When I was in the 90s growing up, that dude was really cool. So even though the 76ers are on my seller list, I would still trade for Allen Iverson. So like you're going to have exceptions to your rules that you create through this spreadsheet, but there's hundreds of other players that have gone through the 76ers team and played for them that I would never trade for ever in my life. So yeah, you got to keep it separate. So even if it's on your sell list, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't trade for one of those players. And if I collect purple refractors and I find a Phoenix Suns, so like Phoenix Suns is purple and orange. Those are two of my favorite colors. I could honestly put Phoenix Suns over onto my trader list because kind of like the Utah Jazz, they got the purple and the orange and the Phoenix. I like the city of Phoenix, even though I've never been there, right? Just whatever makes you feel like an American. You know what I mean? Like I have Detroit Pistons on the list because I could spend time talking about Detroit or reading about Detroit, and it makes me feel connected to America. Like, that's where they build the cars, and that's where we got, the mechanic vibe of America, right? And so that's a team that I could study more than the Denver Nuggets and the LA Clippers and the New Orleans Pelicans. Is like I mean I couldn't sit here and read about the New Orleans Pelicans, and I live close to New Orleans. I could cheer on individual players if they're hot because I am from the New Orleans area, but it's not a place that I go and visit very often or at all. I've never been there. I've been to Louisiana once in my life, and it was cool. It's a beautiful state with a bunch of green grass growing everywhere and kind of like the lowlands. Like there's not a lot of mountains and hills. It's all flat. Kind of swampy, I guess you would say, with a bunch of tall grass. So it's a beautiful place. You could tell you're getting close to the ocean, because it's all flat. Big sunrises and sunsets and a bunch of green grass that's 3 foot tall, and that's what it looks like from the interstate anyway. I don't know, maybe there's other features to it, but anyway, but for right now, that's on my seller list, and I don't think that you're going to change my mind about that one. Whereas, my mind could be changed about like the San Diego Padres. I think they used to have some really hot players. Like, no, I guess it was the San Francisco Giants had Barry Bonds. So like if they had a big player, it was from the '90s or something. I could see myself going for that team, or at least that player on that team. So like your list of teams, and then you're gonna build your list of players, and then and then after that, for each team you're gonna have a list that says buy, sell, and trade for each of the players that have gone through that team. And then after that, you're gonna go through your list of buy, sell, and trade for all your teams. And you're going to build a master list of like, these are my best players. So like I said, Kobe White from the Chicago Bulls. Obviously Michael Jordan from the Chicago Bulls. Even when Michael Jordan played for the Washington Wizards, I'm still going to collect a Michael Jordan card before I'm going to collect a Kobe White card. even if it's a Washington Wizards card, which is on my sell list, I'm going to collect that because the player is hotter, more historical value. But would I trade a Kobe White for a Michael Jordan? No, because that's going to that's taking one of my keep cards and trading for another keep card. I would never do that. That's going to half my amount of keep cards in my collection. And the point is to build your collection as big as you can. So I'm only going to sell. I'm only going to trade cards from my trade and sell. You're trying to trade as many seller cards into your trader cards, and then you're going to try to trade those for cards that are on your buyer list, so that you don't have to buy those cards with your own money, right? Those are cards that, yeah, technically you would buy them. I guess you could put your fingers up in the quotation like you're buying them by trading for them, right? Whereas these trader cards, those are up for trade, but they hold interest in your mind so that you can be a fan of the sport and read the newspapers and stuff about those teams and players, and so that you have some trade bait in your binders, that you can carry with you everywhere you go to the comic book store every weekend, and so that you don't have to take your keeper list to the school. You get what I'm saying? And so, like I say, you're basically buying these cards by trading these cards. And your goal is to trade as many of the seller pile. That's why I colored it red light, green light, yellow light. You're trying to get as many green lights as you can from as many red lights as you can. But that means you're going to have to trade some red lights for some yellow lights. And then you're going to have to trade some yellow lights for some green lights. That being said, your main goal is to really see this actually the real strategy. I'm glad I got to this point, and then I'm going to stop because I've been talking for like an hour, but actually you would hold your yellow list here, your yellow light list here, your trader list. Those are for private trades at your home, because like I say, you wouldn't mind having, 100 Orlando Magic cards, right? You might even get some of them PSA graded to trade with your friends and stuff, so that you can trade up into these higher category cards for the green list, right? But when you're out in public trading at the comic book store, you're only going to take the red list. You're only going to take the Toronto Blue Jays, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Miami Marlins, the Milwaukee Brewers. Like, cards that you're not interested in at all. And you're going to trade, hopefully, for green light cards. But if you can't come to an agreement on some green light cards from their collection, because they might not be trading any of those, then you at least can trade for some yellow light cards. And you can take those home with you and put those in your private trades binder. And then when you're at home with your friends, you have big, thick binders full of, like I say, New York Yankees, San Francisco Giants, Chicago Cubs. Those are good cards that your friends would really be interested in. And, you could at least do some trades where, like, I'll trade you 2 of my yellow light cards for 1 of your yellow light card that's on my yellow light list, right? So, like, I could trade you 2. So, like, if you have a, who's that New York Yankee shortstop? Derek Jeter. I'm heavy on Derek Jeter. He would be in my green list, to be honest with you. But, just based off of this list here, it's on my yellow list. So, I would be willing to trade you 2 Texas Rangers cards of equal value to that 1 Derek Jeter card, right? So you can definitely trade within your yellow list, and the strategy there is so like you could trade yellows for yellows, but the strategy there is to always kind of get a card that's worth more value and would be easier to sell, if you needed to sell. So like, or would obviously be easier to trade or sell. So like, obviously, more people are going to be after Derek Jeter. Um, Whereas you could have two no-name players from the Texas Rangers, but maybe your friend is into the Texas Rangers, so he wants those two cards, and you're like, well, you would have to give me the Derek Jeter from the Yankees to make that trade, and he would be like, oh, okay, I'll do it. Well, now you have the amount of cards that you need to sell to make that money back, right? So like, I could go out today and sell a Derek Jeter card real easy. That would be easy. Just go to eBay, type it in, and sell that card. So if you trade two $5 Texas Ranger players for one $10 Derek Jeter card, and Derek Jeter is a more popular name, then like you just saved yourself having to sell two cards to make that $10. You could just sell one card and make that $10, and that card's going to be more popular. It's going to sell probably the same day you list it instead of like 10 weeks from now. Or in 10 days instead of 10 weeks, right? And so that's another strategy. We'll get into more strategies later, but like that's why you got to separate out your teams. Then you got to know your players from each team. Then you got to make your master list of like the best players, even if they're from a team that you normally don't trade for. Washington Wizards, I don't like them, but I do like Michael Jordan. He played for them for a couple years. So those cards actually do make it to my green list. Kind of, so you're going to have random, what I call override to the rule, exceptions to the rules that you've created. And that keeps things interesting as well. And I would keep a separate list of those cards those players as well. To be honest, that would be another master list. You have your master list of things that make sense, and then you have an override or an exception to the rule master list of things that really didn't make sense, but it does increase your trading power because you have the list. That you're looking for those cards. Just those are more rare to find, right? But also you're going to find those Washington Wizards Michael Jordan cards more often at trade night, whereas everybody knows to keep their Chicago Bull Michael Jordan card, or they're going to ask $100 for it or whatever. But you can still get a really nice Michael Jordan card, but it'll be a Washington Wizards card, but you might get it for $5, right? So you could build a huge Michael Jordan collection, and most of them will be Chicago Bulls. But then you're going to have another. Let's say you have 1,000 Chicago Bulls Michael Jordan cards, and then you also have 100 Washington Wizards Michael Jordan cards. That's going to diversify that player collection in your collection as well, which raises the value of the entire collection of Chicago Bulls Michael Jordans too, because a real Chicago Bulls Michael Jordan fan loves, or a fan of basketball from the 90s loves that story of how he did play for the Wizards, and they were a brand new team at that time, and so they want those cards too. And if you ever just wanted to sell like half of your Michael Jordan collection, you could sell, let's say it's 500 cards or whatever. Some of them would be Washington Wizards. It's going to attract more value from those serious collectors. So it's worth having those players on a list as well, right? So the exception list is probably the final list that you would make. And then I would say the final list would be the up-and-comer list, right? Like, players that you haven't really heard about, but they do play for your green light or yellow light teams, and you happen to notice that their statistics are on the rise, and everybody's trading them for $1 and $2 value, but you know that in 5 years those cards are going to be worth 5 and 10, and so those are the ones that you want to strike on. Everything you do is meant to go from, I'm going to trade you a couple of $1 cards, and I'm going to get a couple of $5 cards. or cards that really keep my interest in the hobby, like a Derek Jeter. The more Derek Jeters I get, the more momentum I'm going to have to trade for more Chicago Bulls Colby White. Whereas Derek Jeter, it's an old classic player, but it's going to keep my interest in the hobby to build up a collection of popular players so that I can go forward tomorrow and get more modern players or less popular players. But it keeps your momentum in the hobby to hit a score like, yesterday I traded 2 no-name Texas Ranger cards for 1 nice Derek Jeter card, PSA graded. It's worth $15, and I had to trade 3 Texas Rangers worth 5 each, but it would take me 3 months to try to find somebody to buy those 3 Texas Ranger card, whereas I could sell that 1 Derek Jeter card in 10 days, and it would be an easy sell on eBay. So you're going to get your money back out of your collection faster. You want to monetize your collection as you're trading. You're trading up into the money and also up into the momentum, because the more valuable trades that you make, the hotter you're going to be for the hobby, and you're going to want to trade more often, and you're going to be going to the comic book store more often to find those deals. And then, everybody likes to build up their collection of treasure, and that's what the hobby's all about. So, it's going to keep your momentum. You have to some trades and stuff. Some is just to keep your momentum, and so the main way to keep momentum is to forget about most of the teams and most of the players, and then be really hot on some of the teams and some of the players, and then have personal treasure collection at your house that you don't even show your friends. And then you have trades that you would only make with your friends, so you leave those at the house. Then you have some that you would actually take with you to the store and trade for. And a bunch of these sellers cards here, you would just list these on eBay and hope that you sell them for $1 and $2 a piece, instead of carrying around a whole big binder full of, like, nobody's going to trade you for some New Orleans Pelicans cards, right? I could carry around 1,000,000 of those cards and still not make one trade at trade night. But I could list them on eBay, and I could sell, maybe 5 cards a week for $2 a piece, and get some money back out of those cards that I can invest into some more packs of cards to continue hunting for more treasure. Or I can invest in a PSA graded Chipper Jones rookie card from Atlanta Braves. Anything that's going to build me momentum in my personal collection. So so that's about as much. It's common sense. I've just put a lot of words to it. But that's the hobby right there in a nutshell. That's the hobby. And I think I hit a bunch of good key points, especially there at the end where I was talking about momentum. A lot of it is momentum. It's not all about trade value, like dollar value. It might be about collection momentum value, like the momentum that you can build by getting off of 3 not hot cards, but they were hot to that guy that was trading you. So, like, it makes you feel good. Like, I didn't know that my cards were worth $15, but he just traded me a $15 Derek Jeter card because he's so hot on Texas Rangers. Like, that would be kind of weird, right? But it makes you feel good when that happens. And when you feel good about the trades that you've made lately, then you're going to have more momentum. And that's why you leave the cards that you don't really want to trade at the house. They're not up for trade. Don't even take them with you. You don't show off your collection. You just have a trade binder. If you want to show off your collection, you get online on YouTube and whatever and make videos, or you could even show them to your best friends, like I say, but and then like I say, you're gonna have some cards that you would trade while you're at the house, but not out in the public. Those would be fun trading. Those will build more momentum as well, because the more seller pile here that you can trade up for cards to show off to your closer friends that you're going to invite over on the weekend. So during the week you might be trading selling on eBay and trading at the comic book store, all these red piles. Arizona Cardinals football cards and Golden State Warriors basketball cards and Detroit Tigers baseball cards. There's no limit on the number of those that I would trade in favor of, you know, Miami Heat private trade binder cards to trade with my better friends. See, those are the binders. What I'm saying is, those are the binders, those private trade binders. You're going from public trade to private trade, and you only show off your private trade binder. You still don't really show off your private collection. You know, once they make it to that point, you hide those cards away in your safe and you don't tell nobody where they're at, right? You know, you don't even show those off to your best friends because they're not up for trade, so let's not even waste our time talking about it because we only got 4 or 5 hours to hang out on a Friday night. Let's just talk about what I have for trade. Would be, you know, I've got 20 Orlando Magic cards and 20 New York Yankees cards and, you know, 40 Baltimore Ravens cards. And you know that your homie is into the Ravens and the Bears and the Pistons and the Miami Heat, the LA Angels and the New York Yankees. And so, you know, if you have homies that you trade with all the time and they're out during the week trading for their cards that they know that you're into, they might know that you're into the St. Louis Cardinals and the Orlando Magic and the New York Giants. And so they're going to be looking for cards that you are going to be interested in on your Friday night trade at your private house where you're actually trading just with 2 or 3 friends or 4 or 5 friends, right? So like is going to take some spreadsheets and some division in your mind to make these spreadsheets work for you, to where you know who you're going to be trading with. You can build a list of what they're interested in as you get familiar with trading with them, and therefore whenever you find cards from, like I said, the Texas Rangers, you know that your friend Luke is into Texas Rangers, and so you keep those to the side. You don't even take those with you to trade night because you're going to give Luke first dibs on those cards. Now, if he says he don't want those cards, then maybe next week you would take them with you as you're out and about at the comic book store trading for, you know, they might make it to your sell list. Like an exception to the rule, you know, just like I might not keep every Arizona Diamondback card, even though it's my favorite team right now in the baseball. But if it's a player that I don't know, I don't like the picture. Maybe it's a funny looking picture where he's throwing the ball, and I don't like the picture. Don't know the player. His statistics aren't high. The card's worth $3. I would put that down into my private trade binder. I would trade that to a friend on a Friday night. And if none of my friends want that card, and I don't want that card, well then I might take it with me on a Tuesday afternoon to the comic book store after I've given my friends a chance. If they don't want it either, that could make it to my seller binder. Now, what I would probably do with that is instead of putting it in my trade binder, public trade, I would put it in my online sales binder, right? Because it is an Arizona Diamondback, and you want your store online to represent your best cards. So your best cards, you're just going to sell them straight up for cash money. Your best cards that don't make it to your final cut for your personal collection, but you still could represent your best teams. Yeah, so I wouldn't take those. If I gave my friends a chance to trade and they didn't want to trade, I wouldn't just take them to go trade with random strangers. I would just put them online and sell them for outright money. Now that money you can invest in new cards or new packs and continue your search for that next treasure. Continue the hunt. That's what the hobby's all about. Those strategies that I've laid out, that's an introduction to how you would think about trading in this hobby. As you can see, it would take like five or more different types of spreadsheets, and it takes a lot of research to know all the teams, all the players, and then you also have to know your division of personally what kind of binders do you keep. Do you have a private trade binder, a private sale binder? By private sale, I mean, I'll sell it on eBay. If I can't get a private trade, I'll put it in my private sale. Whereas then you have public trade and public sale, and then you have private keep and public keep. Right? I'm not going to show off my $1,000 Chicago Bulls Michael Jordan rookie that I just got in a PSA 9. I'm going to put that in my safe, and I'm not going to tell nobody I even have it, even my best friends, because, sometimes friends come and go, sometimes they stay, but you don't want to make them jealous. You don't want to kill their momentum for the hobby by showing off every time you get a grail, right? So you're going to hide your grails, and you're going to, and then you got these 5 or 6 other types of binders that you're always constantly building. And then you got these 5 or 6 spreadsheets that you're constantly adjusting what goes into these binders. And like I say, it's good to have it in a spreadsheet because you can print it out, put that list on the cover of your binder, and now you know what's in that binder. You know why it's in there is because it's on the seller side of this type of list. And you need to know, why are you trading for these cards? You don't just need to... It's hard to build momentum for the hobby, and it's hard to build a valuable collection if you just go into it trading at random. So if you accidentally traded Miami Dolphins rookie card for Tennessee Titans lineman card, a lineman for the Tennessee Titans from 2005, and you had the hot rookie for the Miami Dolphins, and you really like the Miami Dolphins team way more than you like the Tennessee Titans, you really don't collect lineman cards, but you just traded a quarterback rookie for a lineman from a team you don't even like, that can kill your momentum. In one day, that can set you back 90%. You could be hot for trading and then make a really bad trade and you get pissed off or upset. Excuse me, I meant to say upset. You get upset and not want to trade for the rest of the month. Well, if you don't trade for the rest of the month, then you're building no momentum, and you might not continue into that hobby. You might find better things to do if you're not actively trading and rearranging your cards. And you got to have ins and outs, man. You got to have cards coming in and cards going out, or you're not a card collector or trader. You're just a hoarder of arguably some cards that you didn't even like when you traded for them, right? If somebody was able to talk you into trading your Miami Dolphins rookie quarterback for a Tennessee Titans lineman from 2005, I would probably be upset for at least the rest of the month, not make any more trades because I would be too cautious, and I would stop researching the hobby. And then all I have to show for my hard work that I've been working on lately would be what? A Tennessee Titans lineman card from 2005? It would be easier to say, hell, I'll just go fishing, or I'll just go ride skateboards, or do something that, something where I don't feel ripped off, something where but if your passion really does lie with sports cards, you don't want to do that to yourself. Because like I say, you can only talk about skateboarding and stuff like that so long, fishing, hunting, skateboarding, whatever. That might not be your true hobby. Like for me, like I can honestly say, like I love the skateboarding and all that kind of culture and stuff. But for me, it's all about sports teams and card collecting, and that's what really keeps my gears moving in my mind and keeps my mouth moving while I'm at trade night talking to people. And you feel like a little hustler while you're out kind of looking for scores and deals. And it's not illegal or anything, right? It's like a totally legal hobby. Obviously, don't be a jerk and rip people off. Don't talk them into trades they're not looking for, because like I say, you don't want to kill anybody's momentum in the hobby. You want to build their self-esteem and their self-confidence so that you have more people around you. Those are friends that you're making, that you might see them next week and they might trade with you again. You know what I mean? And like, if you can keep them interested by not ripping them off, Like I say, you never want to rip somebody off, because then when they see you next week at trade night, maybe they still keep coming back, but they know that you rip people off. They're going to tell your friends. If they tell 3 of their friends that they're there with, that guy ripped me off, those 3 people ain't going to trade with you either. So you could go to a comic book store and have 5 people already looking for you as the guy that they're not going to trade with because you're the guy that ripped people off, right? And if you go to the local comic book store in my town, there might only be 5 people there to begin with. So you really want to make friends, not enemies. And so these spreadsheets can help you do that as well. And these strategies that I mentioned. But like I say, don't push people into trades just because it's a good trade for you if you know that it wouldn't be the right trade for them. You know, if they're trading you a Miami Dolphin rookie quarterback from 2025, they need to be getting something that's that's going to make them feel good, like a running back from the Dallas Cowboys, and it's a rookie card from 2024, right? Something, if they're higher on Cowboys than they are Miami Dolphins. You want it to be a good trade for them. So if you're keeping up with your spreadsheet in your mind, you're going to try to use, it's going to take some common sense and some guessing. What would their green light be? What would their yellow light be? And what would their red light be? And like, their red light is going to be the same as your red light, because you live in the same area. Their red light is going to be the same as yours. So it's going to help you to be a trader who doesn't rip people off as well. Because like, everybody's high on the Lakers, the Bulls, the Braves, the Red Sox, the Dodgers. Everybody's high on those cards. So if they're trading you one of those cards, they need to be getting one of those cards in exchange. Don't be the guy that's out trading Portland Trailblazer card for Chicago Bull rookie card. You're going to show up the next week or two at the trading place, and people are going to know that guy rips people off. That kid left crying and he left laughing because he got a good trade and that kid got a bad trade. Also, if you're 30 years old, don't be trading with no 10-year-old kid. Don't be trading with no 15-year-old kid, right? And if you're trading with 20-year-old kids, be cool, man. Be cool. You know, life is too valuable to hurt people's feelings. You know, if they're in college and you're old enough to be the teacher, they're young enough to be your student, be the teacher. You know what I mean? Be the teacher in that moment. Don't be the student who don't act like, I didn't know that Jimmy didn't like the Tennessee Titans more than he likes the Chicago Bulls. I thought he really liked that card. No, you didn't. You knew you was ripping dude off for a Chicago Bulls rookie, right? Like, if you're older than somebody, if you're trading with them, don't be predatory. They need to want to trade with you first of all, probably, and then you need to give them a good value for their trade. Maybe even rig the trade in their favor, not yours, right? And so I used to trade a lot when I was at school, man. I never really ripped anybody off. I think I accidentally did a couple of times, and that's how I know what I'm talking about here is like, you know, I accidentally pushed some kids into trading, you know, once or twice. You know, some kids who are a little bit new to the hobby or something, you'd be like, that kid doesn't realize he has a secret rare Genzo from Yu-Gi-Oh collection. Just opened it up out of a pack. He doesn't even know how rare it is. I happen to know it's worth $10. I need it for my deck, and it's a perfect example of the card. It just got opened from the pack. So, you know, I think I traded that kid like, I don't know if that was the exact card, but that's the type of thing that happened. And then, you know, I traded him like, you know, maybe a few cards that are ultra rare but not secret rare. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you have what you call like secret rare, and then you have ultra rare. Ultra rare might be worth $5. Secret rare might be worth $40. So like, you know, I traded him, you know, 3 or 4 cards worth $5, $10 each. Like, the value was there, right? Like, you know, you're always adding up in your mind the value of the card too. Like, this card's worth $40, I'll give you $40 worth of cards. But But are any of those cards going to be worth 40 on their own? And if the answer is no, then don't push that person into that trade. Right? Let them keep their grails. Actually, if I was the teacher in that moment, I would have said, look, guy, that card right there, don't bring it back to trade night. You go and put that at home in your safe and you keep it there. Don't tell anybody you have it. That's a rare card. That's worth 40. You don't trade that card unless you get a Michael Jordan rookie card in exchange, okay? Go home and don't ever bring that card back up here. Somebody else would trade you and it will hurt your feelings. Okay, hey, when they get some momentum and they're back at the store and they're trading with people, they're going to remember and they're going to tell their friends, that's the guy. That's the guy that told me I have a super rare Charizard and that I need to go hide it at my house. I don't need to bring it back up here. That's how I still have that Charizard. I was going to trade him that Charizard for, a Blastoise. Whereas, Blastoise is a good card, but it's not a Charizard, right? In the Pokemon world. Like, you could trade it could be a nice card. But if it's not on the same level, there's some cards that people don't trade for. You understand what I'm saying? You have to know enough to know. Like, if you have a Charizard, you're not trading for that. You're going to sell it for cash money. And it's going to have to be what it's worth. Otherwise, it needs to go in your safe collection at home that nobody knows about. And so if you're the teacher in that moment, you would tell that kid that, hey, this is a card. If you sell it, get what it's worth. If you keep it, get it graded and keep it in a safe at home and don't ever show even your best friends. Just build your collection with that card. That's a personal collection card. Okay? And they'll look at you. They might be a 20-year-old, you might be a 30-year-old, and you might say that. And they might say, okay. And then they're going to go home and they're going to get on Google and they're going to look up, is Charizard really the rarest card in all of Pokemon? And it's going to tell them, like, yeah, dude, that's the rarest card. It's worth $40. That dude could have traded you 4 $10 cards for it. But see, that would have diversified that guy's collection down. He'll never be able to trade those 4 $10 cards for one Charizard ever again in your life, right? He might not even be able to sell those cards. It might take him 6 months on eBay to sell even one of those cards, right? Because they're from your seller pile, so they're in other people's seller pile. There's more people selling that card than there are buying it, right? So that's not a fair trade. So you need to be the teacher in those moments. I think that's the final thing that I should say for this video. It's already over an hour long. And so like I said, we played a little bit of video games. We talked a little bit about card collecting. I hope you guys enjoyed what I had to say. I think this is a good video to introduce you to the card trading hobby. Obviously, I have a lot of work to do on my own collecting hobby here. I have more spreadsheets to make. And obviously, it's going to take a lot of time to rebuild what I haven't been working on, and I should have been working on it for years now, but I wasn't. So it won't happen overnight, but over time I can build more spreadsheets, research more players and teams, and move some of the teams and players around onto their different lists until I get something that works for me to build more and more momentum each and every day. I want every trade I make to build momentum for me. And I don't want to rip anybody off because that'll kill their momentum. And if I kill too many people's momentum on accident even, then it'll make me feel bad because then I'll be the guy that'll kill my own momentum if I do that as well. So, if you kill other people's momentum, you're going to get bad karma. You're going to get pointed at the comic book store, say, that's the guy that ripped me off. Then you're not going to go back to the comic book store. Then you're not making trades. Next thing you know, you're out of the hobby, and next thing you know, you're not getting any good trades. Your momentum is dead on the water, and you're going to be sitting duck with no trading partners and no new cards coming in, and no old cards going out. And as you can see, the point of the hobby is to have more cards coming in and old cards going out, cards you don't want going out, not ripping anybody off because you don't want to get ripped off, And sometimes if you kill somebody else's momentum, what would happen would be your own momentum would get killed. And so that would be the trade that you got in return for a bad trade to them would be bad karma for yourself. Now you don't have any trading partners and your hobby dies. What about in 5 years when you're sitting at home bored and you wish you was at the comic book store trading cards instead? And you could have been trading cards, but you ripped some guy off one afternoon at the comic book store, right? Never rip anybody off. Um, if you know that they have a Grail card, tell them that's a Grail card, dude. You need to keep it or sell it for what it's worth. Um, if they say, "Do you want to buy it?" Say, "Dude, do you really know what you got?" Like, that's a first edition Charizard, shadowless. It could be worth up to $1,000. No, I don't really want to buy it because I don't want to rip you off. I want you to go get it graded, put it in your safe at home, keep it as a Grail card, okay? And if you do sell it, the fair way to sell it would be to put it on eBay as an auction and get what it's worth. Don't just sell it to me because I don't want the bad karma of maybe you could have got more, and I don't want you to feel bad about trading up here at this guy's comic book store either, because the comic book store owner, he's going to notice if people are getting ripped off and he's not going to like it. So he might even say something to you like, "Hey man, you've been up here ripping kids off, you ain't allowed back up here," and they'd be like, so you want to keep your place where you like your avenue for trading cards, your place where you like to go trading cards at, needs to be open for you as well. So you don't want to rip yourself off by getting kicked out of your trading place by making some bad trades. So you kind of got to know what you're doing. And if somebody's really hype on a card, don't even try to trade them for it, man. Just let people have their excitement for the hobby. We're trying to build excitement for the hobby, right? And so trading isn't meant to be a predatory thing to just build your monetized value. It's also meant to build collection momentum. Actually, I would say building momentum for both people who are trading is the first reason to trade. And then secondary, the cards need to be equal value so you're both getting what you want and both people need to feel good about it. And during the exciting time where somebody's like, "I have a Charizard, oh my god," don't be that guy who's trying to trade him right then. Just hype it up with him. "Oh my god, a Charizard, no way. I can't believe I'm seeing one right now in person. That's so cool." Right? "Dude, that's so cool. You need to take that and put it in your personal collection, dude." Now you're the teacher who helped him out and he's gonna take it home and keep it. He's not gonna trade it. Cause, and then in the low moments where everybody's bored, everybody's been playing Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, and then they pull out their sports cards and people are just flipping through binders. That's when you can make trades, and you're still not going to trade for Grails, okay? If you're looking through a trade binder and you notice somebody has a Michael Jordan rookie card on page 5 of their binder, not even on the front page, right? Be like, "Dude, do you realize that's a Grail? Because that's a Grail card, you need to take it home and don't even trade with it, okay? If you sell it, you need to get all that it's worth on eBay, something like that, and if they're like insisting that, no, I would trade it, be like, "Dude, look it up on your phone for them. Say, look, it's worth $1,000 if it's graded. Yours is in good condition. You need to pay the $15 to have it graded. You need to put it in your safe at home and build your personal collection with that. Or sell it for the $1,000 online where there's multiple people who can bid on it and make an offer. Because I don't want you to just sell it to me because that would be unfair. I might not make the right offer and then I would have to feel bad too. And I don't want any bad karma, I don't want to rip you off on accident either, because if I accidentally rip people off and then I gain maturity in the hobby and I realize that I accidentally was ripping people off, then that might kill my momentum in a year or two. When you realize that you was a jerk, you're going to say, "Oh my god, I didn't realize it, but I'm a jerk," right? And then you're going to feel bad. So don't make any moves that are going to make you feel bad in the future. Don't make any moves that are going to make you feel bad right now. And moves that will make you feel bad are whenever somebody's hype and you're trying to trade, you're trying to take their hype from them on accident, right? You want to share in the hype by, "Oh, do you want to trade?" No, that's not when you offer a trade. You only offer a trade when everybody's bored, sitting around, so that they're clear-headed, so that they're not using all that energy that they're hyped for their new Charizard. You know, when they've had time to calm down and they've put it in their binder and everything. You know, like I say, just only trade at the times where it's a lower moment of energy, like not when they just opened it right out of a pack. Like it has to be integrated into their collection and like I say, if it's a Grail card, tell them it's a Grail card. If you do find it in their collection later, tell them it's a Grail card then as well. Say, I figured you would take this home and never bring it back. Why? I don't know. Like they might not have looked it up and realized it's a Grail card. You might find it in their collection later, even though it's not the hype moment. It might be the lower moment. You know, less energy. Just sitting around on a rainy day at the comic book store, be like, no, dude, this is a Grail card. I can't believe you didn't put it in your personal collection. You need to keep this. You know, so you can save the day 3 weeks later, right? But it takes, first of all, not feeding into their hype by trying to take their hype from them. Second of all, noticing that they missed the hype and they accidentally put it into their trade binder. That's the moment where you can save the day again and say, look, you need to take this to your personal collection. Don't trade for it. If you do trade, it needs to be for cash money. You know, because there are cards that are rare. You know, and there's kids who don't know. And, like, you're going to help them. But, like I say, if you're 30 years old, don't even trade with a 15-year-old or a 10-year-old. Because, boy, I'll tell you, their parents will get pissed off at you. I'll tell you that, you know. Their parents might be 30 years old, right? So you might get in a damn altercation. Did you really trade my son's Charizard for your, you know, Squirtle? Yeah, no, I don't know. Do I know you? Who are you? Yeah, that's my son over there, and he's crying because he lost a $500 Charizard to some asshole. You're 30 years old, you should know better, right? Be like, I mean, what can you say except you know that you was a jerk to do it? So, like, by the time you're 30 years old, you should know better. So if you're old enough to know better, that's where you need to draw the line. If you're old enough to know better, or if they're young enough to not know better, don't even offer any trades at all, right? I wouldn't trade with kids if I was an adult. That's what I'm saying. 18 years and older, still be cool. If you're 30 and they're 20, you're still basically an adult and they're still basically younger than you. Yeah, they're technically an adult, but no, they're not as compared to you. And so you know, you lived through the 90s, they weren't even born yet. So they don't realize that Scottie Pippen is just as cool as Michael Jordan because they weren't watching him on the TV and stuff. So, you know, you could hit it big on some trades with some Scottie Pippens and some Allen Iversons and but do you want to be the guy that just ripped off some 20-year-old kid, right? No. You really don't. You really, really don't. So if you're old enough and they're not old enough, then the answer is no. If it's a Grail card, even if it's in their trade binder, and especially if it's on a hype day where they just got it and they don't know what they got, the answer is no. And, you know, if the common sense would tell you that that should be on their green light list, but they don't know it and they have it on their red light list, then you should know the answer is no. And you should tell them, this is not a red light card, this is a green light card. Okay, if I had that card, I would keep it at home and not tell nobody about it. I wouldn't be trading it up here, okay? And that's going to build your reputation as a good guy. And every time you do that, you're going to get more respect and better reputation. And it only takes one bad trade to ruin your respect and reputation, so you don't really want to hurt anybody's feelings. So, like, trading is not so important that it's worth risking your respect or reputation for. Okay, have honor. And that way, you know, God or whatever you believe in, when you're opening packs, if you know that you've been a good trader and you haven't ripped anybody off, at least not on purpose, you don't think you've ripped anybody off lately, you're probably going to get better cards in your pack. You know, the world will reward you with more opportunities to continue building your momentum in the hobby because you didn't accidentally kill somebody else's or intentionally on purpose kill somebody else's momentum for the hobby, right? You know, for what? To make an extra $20 on a card? Like, you know, I could trade you a $20 card for your $40 card, but, you know, God is watching. You know what I mean? That old saying, like, yeah, but God is watching. You know, I mean, that might be what, maybe you don't get a job, so you don't have any money, so you can't buy any new packs of cards and get new cards yourself. And what if those packs of cards you could have bought with money that you would have got from a cool job if you would have had better karma? Then you could have bought 100 more packs of cards, and those cards would be worth $20 and $40 too. So if somebody owns a card, it's not it's not worth risking your respect and reputation to get that one card. That's a card that somebody else owns. Um, they don't have to trade with you. So if you kind of request a trade and then push for that trade, then it could be interpreted as a ripoff, and you don't want to rip somebody off. You know, like just because they have it at the comic book store doesn't mean that it's really up for trade either. You know what I mean? Just because it's a card in the store doesn't mean that it's a trade card. They might just really like that card and want to show it off tonight, and so don't try to push them to trade their top cards. Right? You trade for the lower level cards, but you do trade, but you only trade at lower energy moments for lower level cards. You're not trying to hit it big on trades. Where you can hit it big is by having a good respect and reputation, and God is watching, and you're going to get rewarded for being a good member of the hobby, a good member of the collecting world, you know, a good trading partner with everyone. Then you're going to get rewarded by, you know, by your version of the world is going to give you more better cards in your packs, or you're going to have more money to buy more packs. Because if you do it the right way, you won't be short of money from your collection, because you're going to have a trade binder that's listed on eBay. That's going to give you money to buy new packs. And then you're going to have a public trade binder, and you're going to trade, you know, little $2 and $3 cards up for little $5 and $10 cards. I would actually draw a line, say if a card is worth 20 or more, I'm not going to trade for it. I mean, you know, and you know, unless it's your friend at your house and you know that until you get maturity in the, like, if I'm trading with you for the first time and I don't know how much maturity you have in the hobby, I'm only going to trade you for a $5 or $10 card. I'm not going to try to get your Grail $20, $40, $60 card no matter what, because we need to build reputation with each person that we trade with as well. So, like, just because you know that you're a good trader doesn't mean that you can just step in and start trading with this person who you don't know if they're good at trading or not. So you need to realize. So, like, you need to, like, if I've traded with you 10 or 20 times and I can see where your level of trading abilities are at is higher, then I can say, well, do you want to trade that $20 or $40 card? But if I don't know where you're at, then we have to have a starting level. So we're only going to trade $1 and $2 cards for maybe $5 or $10 cards, right? You know, like $2 and $3 cards for one $10 card, or, you know, and you got to ask them too, like, is this, why do you want this card? Like, is this, or like, why do you want these cards? Are these teams that you like? Are these players that you like? Why is this on your green light list? Because to me, this would be like a yellow light or a red light. And so if you're getting to yellow light, red light, that means slow down or stop. You know, it's better to stop a trade and say, we'll trade next week. We'll trade next week. I got to go outside and make a phone call. I'm sorry. Hold on. I got to interrupt this trade and walk away because I don't want to rip you off for your $10 card. I've never traded with you before. And so I don't want you to walk away and then realize these 5 cards are all pieces of crap, right? There has to be a reason that you want those 5 cards. Like they're all Texas Rangers, and that's your favorite team, and you'll be able to tell because they'll have a Texas Rangers T-shirt on, right? Okay, well then maybe it's a green light for a first trade that's worth $10 or less. Yeah, maybe, but like if it's a first trade, I wouldn't trade for anything more than a $20 card, right? At the most. And then you owe it to yourself to hold that card in the back of your trade binder. If that kid comes back and he's looking at me all stank eye, kind of crazy, like he wants his card back, say, hey, you don't feel good about the trade, or what's up? I still got that card. We can trade back. Like I say, you got to be the teacher once you hit that certain age where you're the older kid and they're the younger kid. You got to be the one to step up and say, hey, if you didn't like the trade, or even at the end of the trade, say, if you didn't like the trade, I'm going to keep this card for the next couple weeks. So if you keep the cards that I traded you and you want to trade back, just hit me up. And then a few weeks later, if you don't see the kid again, or if you see him again and he's happy with the trade, like I say, check in with him. Ask him, hey, you still happy with that trade? Because I still got that card. We could trade back if you want. And if he says, no, I'm cool with it, okay. Well, now you can trade that. You can put that card into your collection. Now you don't expect to have to trade back. It's been a few weeks. You checked in twice with the kid. Say, hey, you told him first of all, if you want to trade back, you can. At the end of every trade, you can say, we can trade back if you don't feel happy with the trade here in a little bit, and I'm going to keep this card for the next couple weeks. I'm going to be up here. If you come up here and I'm up here and you're looking for a trade back, I can trade back. But I want my original cards back too, obviously. But, like I say, if you want to trade back, just bring me my cards back. I'll give you your card back, okay? And then if you see them a few weeks later and you check in and say, hey, you happy with the trade? And they say, yeah. Then as long as there's nothing wrong with the trade, say, well, yeah, let me see. Okay. So you like those cards because they was 5 Texas Rangers cards, and you think they all match together, and so you're high on the Texas Rangers, right? That's why you like that trade. Like, verify, why are you cool with the trade? Oh, well, I love Texas Rangers, so yeah, I'm happy with the trade. Be like, okay, because I'm going to add this one to my personal collection. I might send it off and get it graded, and once I get it graded, it's going in my safe. I like this card, little $20 card. I can get it graded, and I like this card. It's a Boston Red Sox. I'm heavy on Boston Red Sox, so I'm happy with the trade too. If you're happy, I'm happy. And they'll say, yeah, man. I feel like I got a good deal. I feel like I got 5 Texas Rangers cards worth $5 each, and you got 1 Boston Red Sox card worth $15. Like, you give them more value than it was even worth. They got more cards than they traded you. And if they follow up with, and I hate the Boston Red Sox, well, then you know that, okay, well, they ain't going to want that card back. I can put it in my personal collection, and it's a good trade. So, like, it takes a lot of brain power and a lot of heart to be a good trader with a good respect and reputation. And you don't want to get in altercations and arguments over cards. So you want to hold on to their card in the back of your trade binder and remember who you traded with. Even keep a list of, like, okay, I traded you these cards for this card. This is my name. This is your name. Hey, you want to take a Polaroid picture together so that I remember, put the picture with the name and the name with the cards that you traded. So that when it comes time to, and that's called your trade back binder. If anybody comes back to you upset, you might keep trades in that binder for 2 months or a month or 2 or something, so that, because they might come back with their dad or their brother or their cousin or their mama or their sister or somebody going to beat you up if you don't give them their card back. Well, hey, everybody, whoa, we're just trading cards here. I even write down every trade, and so I know what cards that you should give me back in exchange for my trade, and I have your trade right here. I'll give it to you, just no problem. And that'll solve any problem. If you can give them their card back right there in that moment, that person will say, wait, okay, so we don't have to fight, you're going to give me the card back? Say, yes, of course I'm going to give you your card back. I don't want to rip you off. I mean, I thought you were happy with the trade. You said you hate the Dodgers and you like the Raiders, and so we traded. But I wrote down the trade. So like, can I have my 3 cards back too? If they say, well, I don't have them no more, but I know I want my card back. Okay, well, you owe me 3 cards sometime in the future. I'm going to give you your card back right now because I don't want my ass kicked. Right? You know what I mean? Because cards are worth money. It's people get upset about cards when they go home and they show their brother, I traded this card for that card, and their brother knew better. You might get in a fight, right? So you want to keep that them. That's why you don't trade with people who's younger than you that might do that to you. And if you do accidentally, something like that happen, hopefully it was for a lower value card until you build reputation with that individual. And so, like, dude, you ain't gonna kick my ass over no $10 card. I'm gonna leave it in the back of my binder. If you come back all upset, I'm gonna pull that card, check it off of my trade list where I wrote down what we traded. I'm gonna give you your card back. You owe me my cards back, but if you can't do it today, maybe tomorrow. I ain't gonna trip and make you give me nothing for it. I'm gonna give you your card outright right now. So that's what I would say. So there's my 2-hour intro. This took a long time to make this video. So I hope you guys liked the video. But that's just my little, getting back started with the hobby. That's what I would suggest. All those suggestions that I have said now are good, experience-based suggestions. And be mature, be respectful, be responsible. Don't get your ass kicked, okay? Okay, so anyway, I gotta go. It's getting dark in my room. I gotta turn some lights on and stuff, but, it's a rainy day outside and everything, and it's getting dark. It's getting late outside, so I gotta get up and move around and do some things, but hopefully you got something out of this video. I hope it really helped you get back into the hobby, especially if you're 25, 30 years old and you're thinking about these things, or if you're a kid, know that maybe you don't want to trade with older people because you don't want to have problems. You want things to be more fair and even. Then you got to keep it kind of fair and even. And that's the responsibility of the older person. But also, don't be the little jerk kid that knows that you're gonna rip off the older kid. Like, I'll trade him and then I'll have my big brother come and kick his ass. Like, that's not fair either. Okay, and there's kids out there that will do that, and I've seen it. And that's why I know to warn my older people, say, hey, don't trade with kids because they might know that they're going to have their older brother come kick ass and get their card back. It might be a scam to begin with. So anyway, but overall the hobby is not a scam. The hobby is great. The hobby is powerful to keep your mind and heart interested in something that's pure. As long as you keep it pure by not being a scammer, then hopefully you won't get scammed as well. I've shared tips, tricks, and strategies in this video to keep things as pure in the hobby as possible. Get you started on the right track with your spreadsheets and how to think about cards and how to find what teams, players, and grails that you're looking for, and how to make trades that are not unfair for anybody involved. And then some tips and tricks of maybe hold on to the trades for a couple weeks or a month afterwards, and write down what was traded and write down their name, and maybe even have them sign. Say, can you sign and date this trade? I'm going to sign it. You sign it. You got these 3 cards for that 1 card. You're happy with the trade because, and write down the reasons they were happy with it. They don't like Boston Red Sox. They like Texas Rangers, so that you can tell their big brother when big brother comes around looking for their card back. You could say, well, here's your card back. It looks like here he said he likes the Texas Rangers, so that's the only reason I traded him. But if he wants his card back, no problem. Here's his card back. Can I have my 3 Texas Rangers cards back, though? And dude will be like, damn, you wrote down all the trades and everybody's like, yeah, and keep that log with you forever. Like, yeah, I write down every trade because, I don't want nothing bad to happen to me out here over a $5 baseball card or a $500 baseball card or whatever, and don't trade for expensive cards unless you've traded with that person 100 times before for lesser value cards, and if they're your same age. They got to be the same age range, they got to have the maturity in the hobby. If you're 30 and you're trading for a $500 card to a 15-year-old kid, you're probably going to get your ass kicked. Somebody's dad or mom or brother or something would be pissed off. But if you really didn't mean to hurt their feelings, and it's only a $10 card anyway, and you can give them their card back, and then you're going to mark down, hey, I don't really trade with that kid because one day he felt like he got ripped off over a $10 card. I ain't going to be trading him no more for no 20, 30, 40, $100 card, because he'll do the same thing again. He's wishy-washy, you know. He trades and then he feels upset about it when he goes home and tells his family what he did, and then he wants his cards back. That's a mistake. I ain't trading with him no more. So you'll have a list of people who you trade with and a list of people who you don't trade with. And like I say, that's where like I say, you know, you might even say, hey, can we take a selfie together and hold up the card that you got and I'll hold up the cards that I got, to be totally transparent, and save that photo from your phone with the signature that he provided you. And like I say, write down why was he interested in the trade, and just kind of be as upfront and honest and transparent about it, and keep a track record of what's going on, and keep the card available in case they do want to trade back. And at the end of every trade, say, you know, we can trade back for the next month or so. Just come ask me. You know, don't be in such a hurry to make a quick buck. Man, you're just building a momentum in the hobby with trading. You don't build a money value collection by trading. You build that by opening packs. And so, you know, anyway, that's it. That's what I can say about card trading. Okay, so everybody, that's my video. Good little intro video to the hobby. It got dark in here on me, that's for sure. But anyways, hope you all had a good time watching my video. And I gotta go to the kitchen and get some food and stuff like that. So I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye.